What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, PackersNews.com, live on Facebook. Wednesday afternoon. Forgot which day it was there for a second. Day 2 of Minicamp is in the books. The Packers have hit the practice field, taken to the locker room. Assistant coaches have spoken at podiums. Spoken being a loosely used word when talking about Winston Moss's appearance. But here we are at the end of the day. I thought I'd jump on and see what's on your minds. See what's on the minds of Packers fans everywhere, including my cousin Brian Nagler, who is joining us. Hello, Brian. What's up? Good afternoon, Donnie. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, the Packers concentrating on youth this week, having, as we discussed yesterday, dismissed, excused all veterans with 6 years or more experience. The young guys continue to get the reps and have varying degrees of success. What's up from Myrtle Beach? What's up, Andy? How was the UK? The UK was fantastic. Jeffrey, what's up? Do you think the Packers are good enough to go to the Super Bowl, Bob? Looking at them on paper, absolutely. Any team quarterbacked by Aaron Rodgers has a chance. You look at the talent around him. There are some spots that are troublesome. You look at right tackle. I think that's something that's going to be a bit of a thorn in their side all year. You look at where the pass rush is going to come from. Obviously, they're counting on kind of guys like Mo Wilkerson turning it around and some young guys stepping it up on the perimeter. But overall, I think they've got a deep, talented team. A lot of it will depend on how they're playing come November and December, how they gel on defense. But for the most part, yeah, they should be a contender. What is Winston Moss so angry at? Matt, that's a great question. I have no answers for you. I have heard of nothing behind the scenes. I know last year he appeared ill at some point where he got very, very thin. He seems to have filled out after that. But as for his attitude towards the media, I couldn't tell you. He, again today, took to the podium. First up, we met with the press met with the assistant coaches, and he wasn't having it. Very curt, very short. I know Jason Wilde even asked him point blank, "What's your deal, man?" Basically, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Moss didn't want to talk about it. So, I mean, he's, obviously fulfilling the NFL obligations, but that's about all I got for you. You looking up to scooping up Jordy's house? No, I am not. Any idea if they'll attempt to trade at Earl Thomas? No, they won't be trading for Earl Thomas anytime soon. Are the guys picking up the playbook easily, and how is Pettine tailoring it to them? That's a good question. Pettine was just talking about it a little while ago, how they seem to be picking it up well. A lot of this classroom stuff is, the things that they're putting up on its feet on the practice field appear to be going well, but it's always hard to say until those pads come on and you see guys kind of with quote-unquote live bullets flying. South Dakota, what's up? Will our running back situation be dependent on our opponent, or are we looking at one main back? That's a really good question. I tend to think you'll see opponent-specific stuff early on in the year, but I do expect Aaron Jones to end up winning the kind of bulk of the carries. Now, that is strictly my opinion. I don't have any insider information on that, obviously. I do think you'll see a good dose of all three of those guys, including Ty Montgomery and Jamal Williams, but eventually I expect Aaron Jones to take that job. Jones seems to be doing well. Yes, Steve. I mean, it's hard to really get much of a handle on anybody in the backfield until the pads come on, because the big equalizer back there is pass protection, and that's the main reason Jamal Williams was always first up last year, is because of his ability there. So when the pads come on in August, late July, early August, we'll start to get a better idea about where Jones is in that regard. What did the Eagles do to expose the Vikes in the NFC Championship game? Can the Packers duplicate? Oh, that's a really good question. One of the things they did one of the things I think Nick Foles did in particular is stay in the pocket. I think we've seen time and again, I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers got hurt out of the pocket last year, But the Eagles have a fantastic offensive line. And they were able to give Foles enough time. Now, that's not to say that he was completely clean all the time. But there was a lot of times where he maybe stepped up a little bit or sidestepped the rush a little bit. But he didn't break contain. He wasn't out on the perimeter. He was in the pocket for a good long while for a lot of those things, where the Vikings had a couple busted coverages, whether the one right before halftime, they just got behind the defense, and I think some of it you could chalk up to Minnesota just having a bad day at the worst possible moment. But I do think the Eagles did a lot of good things, but specifically I think the play of Nick Foles from the pocket is really what did it. Now, he took some hits. He took some big-time shots. But he also completed a ton of big-time passes because he didn't bail and because he lets things develop downfield. And I think another part of that, though, is I don't think the Vikings really expected the Eagles to try to, or Foles in particular, to try to attack things downfield. I think they were expecting much more of a horizontal game, and I think the Eagles really surprised them with that. That's something that you're never going to get with the Packers because they're always going to be expecting Aaron Rodgers to go downfield. And that's, Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers have been doing that their entire careers. So I think, there was a lot of things that kind of played into that result, but I think Nick Foles was the biggest one. Does Ty Montgomery have more rushing or receiving yards this year? Oh, good question. I'm going to go with rushing yards. I do think he'll be utilized at both positions, but I think you'll see him used on third downs quite a little bit. Emphasis on inside rush from edge rush is going to take time. Yeah, I've read a couple of different places about, including I know Pete Doherty wrote about, traditionally Mike Pettine liking guys to be winning their one-on-ones on the inside for the rush to kind of materialize inside. It doesn't, negate or dismiss what they're going to need to get from guys like Clay Matthews, Nick Perry, Reggie Gilbert, Kyler Fackrell, Vince Beagle on the outside. They're still going to have to win one-on-ones, and they're still going to be an intricate part of the defense. But I do think, Kenny Clark, Muhammad Wilkerson, Mike Daniels are going to be given a lot more leeway and or kind of green lights to go get the quarterback in a way that they weren't always given under Dom Capers. B.J. Raji famously used to grouse about that. He would always be given not so much a two-gap assignment, but he was not given a lot of basically go get the quarterback kind of calls. Those guys are asked to do a lot of different things down there. And it's funny because to us on the outside, it all looks like a mash of bodies, but those guys are doing a lot of different things. I know Mike Daniels has talked about it before, especially being taken off the field on third downs. I think he'll get more opportunities, especially because of what you're talking about there, Pettine wanting those guys to win one-on-ones on the interior. Make a move for Julio Jones, Gary. That's not going to happen anytime soon. Is Bryce still here? Kentrell Bryce? Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you read Ryan Wood's piece on Kentrell Bryce. It went up this morning. Jake Ryan out with a hamstring injury. Injuries happen. It's football. Who looks better at this point, Alexander or Jackson? I would probably give that a toss-up. I think Jackson's got his hands on more footballs, but none of it really means anything until they put the pads on. Julio would want an arm and a leg along with Nelson's house if they signed him. That's good. Is HaHa holding out a sign of overconfidence? First of all, he didn't hold out of anything. He missed a voluntary session, a couple of voluntary sessions, but they were voluntary. And as he pointed out, rightfully so, he didn't have any financial incentive to show up, so he had his godmother pass away, and he thought, I'm just not going to go. And I can't blame him. They put that fifth-year option on him. He doesn't have much of a recourse, and it wasn't mandatory, so he didn't go. People want to make it way more than it is. He's there now, and he's working. Sorry, guys. All right, very good. When are we going to hear from Mike Pettine? Paul, we just heard from Mike Pettine. He just spoke about 20 minutes ago. Does Rodgers extend before week 1? Yeah, I think so. I think we'll see an announcement of an extension or a report of an extension probably, around right before camp starts. I would think well before week 1. I would think right at the end of July is my guess. Milwaukee's best or Bud? Timothy. That's not even a question. Obviously Milwaukee's best. Hardest game of the regular season? Take your pick, Adam. I know a lot of people will probably circle the date in New England, but you never really know until you get, a feel for what teams' strengths, weaknesses, their personalities, how they're playing, etc. Just look at those first 4 games. After that, teams will be very different come November and December than they are in September and October. Is Darren Perry gone? Yeah, he's been gone. How many weeks of OTAs left? Minicamp is over tomorrow. Their last day is tomorrow, and then they break until the end of July, until July 26th, I believe. Will the Packers ever play a game in the UK? Next year is your best bet. They're slated to play the Chargers next year. The Chargers, who are still playing in a soccer stadium out there in LA. There's a good chance the Packers play that game against San Diego in the UK. Or I'm sorry, in Los Angeles, against Los Angeles in the UK. Which Packer is the most underrated? Ooh, good question. Currently or all time? Currently, man, that's a really tough one. I mean, there are obvious answers here. I know a lot of diehard fans really like Kenny Clark. I think Kenny Clark is probably still not that well known outside of Green Bay. I think diehard football fans know who he is, but I think he's set to really explode this year, and I think he's a star in the making. Will Kenny Clark have a bigger year than Mike Daniels? I don't know. It's hard to depends on what the criteria is, I guess, but they're asked to do different things. I think they're both good compliments for each other, but it's a bigger year. I don't know what that means. What do you think our record will be this year? Travis, ask me again at the end of training camp. Any news on the O-line? No news. Could Davis make the roster because of the jump from year 2 to 3? You can't discount it. I tend to think that if Jair Alexander takes the return duties away, though, he's got a real uphill battle to make the roster. Montravius Adams, Phil, he's out there. It's going to be hard to get any kind of feel for what kind of progress he's making until we see him in pads. Mike Pettine was very careful to mention every defensive lineman today when he was going through the squad. But, like I said, he's not, about to jump off the field yet, because those guys in the trenches, it's really hard to get any kind of idea of how they're looking until they get pads on and they start hitting. Are the Packers planning on DeShone Kizer being heir to the throne? No. I like all the IHOP questions. And no, I would never order a burger there. Do you think Jason Spriggs can win the starting right tackle job while Bulaga's on PUP? Martha, I think he can. I think it'll be interesting to watch him, Kyle Murphy, and Byron Bell kind of battle that out. He's got to improve when it comes to those deep pass sets that he always gets in trouble with when it comes to letting guys inside. It continues to haunt him. It was something that we saw his rookie year, and you thought, okay, it'll get better. And then his second year, it kind of got worse. The end of last year before he got hurt, it was just every time there was a 3rd and long, you could just kind of count on him getting beat inside. It happened to almost every single time. And it's something that happened every day in camp. And so it's not like they don't know about it. It's not like he doesn't know about it. But it's a glaring weakness right now that he's got to figure out. Did you see the Packers signing Jonathan Hankins? No, I think Hankins is a really good player. But I also think he wants to get PAID paid. And I don't think the Packers are going to pay big money for a guy who's probably only going to play on 1st and 2nd down. They've got a good deep rotation. Now, injury strikes, maybe they call him, but I would tend to doubt it. Any vets on the roster bubble? I'd say, you know, you look around it, and the one that would probably jump out at me is maybe Jake Ryan. But a lot can happen between now and camp when injuries start happening, and you know, see how guys play, see how they develop. You never really know, but he's the one where you look. Maybe him and Lance Kendricks is another guy who has, you know, as a third tight end, maybe making a little bit more than the Packers would feel comfortable with, but that's just guesswork on my part. Right guard seems to be between McCray and Patrick, with McCray seeming to have the edge. Matthew, yeah, I'm on record here months ago saying I think that's McCray's job. I do think Patrick will obviously be given every opportunity, but judging by what McCray put on tape last year, I think he's your best bet. Now, again, they could put pads on in July, August, and maybe Patrick makes a big jump and makes it a real easy decision. But right now, judging by what we put on, he's already put on tape, I would say McCray's your guy at right guard. All right, everybody, I'm going to jump. Thank you so much for joining me. Sorry if I couldn't get to your question. They go by very fast every day. It's amazing how many of you show up every day. Make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. One more day of minicamp to go. In the meantime, PackersNews.com for all your needs. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks a lot, everyone.